Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves and each other and the world. It is good to be together. Let's take a few moments right now and turn our sound on so we can greet each other and say good morning, hear each other's voices. Go ahead and do that right now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Greg Williams, hi to everybody.
Happy New Year, everybody.
How's everyone
Good morning.
doing?
Hello.
Here.
That's great. Welcome, everybody.
Oh, sorry.
I want to add a couple of announcements to the many things in your order of service. The order of service is something you can see by following the link in the chat. So do have a look there at all the things that are going on, as well as following the service. I want to particularly call your attention to things happening this week. The adult religious education class, Transcendentalism, Then and Now, with John Burens, begins on Wednesday. That's a 4-week program, and we're really lucky to have it. So please do follow the link and let the Adult Religious Education Committee know if you plan to attend that, and they'll send you all the link and information that you need. And also coming up this Saturday is the Talent No Talent Show. It's a much needed fundraiser as we close out this year. Obviously a lot of financial difficulties for many of us. So don't miss out. It'll be a lot of fun as well as raising some funds for UUCPA. And now, let us begin our service. As always, you may want to light your own chalice there at home. Whether you have a chalice or candle there with you or not, please join in on the refrain that is printed in your order of service. I'll give you your cue. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For all the times and all the ways we have begun anew together, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from Zhuangzhou, from the book also called Zhuangzhou, chapter 13. The 10,000 things change and grow, their roots and buds, each with its distinctive form, flourishing and decaying by degree, a constant flow of change and transformation. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, let us become centered and fully present in this place together. And now please join in as Bruce leads us in singing Viene Spirito Creatore.
Pray in us, Holy Spirit, come and pray in us, come and visit us, Holy Spirit, Spirit come, come and pray in us, Holy Spirit, come and pray in us, come and visit us, Holy Spirit, Spirit come and pray in us, Holy Spirit, come and pray in us, come and visit us, Holy Spirit, Spirit come, come and pray in us, Holy Spirit, come and pray in us, come and visit us, Holy Spirit, Spirit come and pray in us, Holy Spirit, come and pray in us, come and visit us, Holy Spirit, Spirit come, Spirit come.
I am sorry to report that I will not be able to share our story for all ages because I left my book at home. I'll share the George and Martha stories at some other occasion. They're appropriate for many, many themes. So let us turn our thoughts instead to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. If you have a joy or a sorrow you would like me to speak this morning, please send your joys and sorrows to joyconcern@uucpa.org or post them in the chat box provided by Zoom, and they will be shared aloud. Let us then have a moment to reflect in silence on our connections with one another and beyond, to people and beings all around this world. It is good to know that we are connected, and that we are here to care for each other and to celebrate with one another. Let's take some silent time of prayer or meditation. Blessed be. Will you join us now in singing of Spirit of Life? Bruce will lead us once again.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading today is from the poem Ring Out Wild Bells by Tennyson. I've left the gendered language as he wrote it. Ring out, wild bells, to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out wild bells and let him die. Ring out the old, ring in the new. Ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let him go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind. For those that here we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor. Ring in redress to all mankind. Ring out a slowly dying cause and ancient forms of party strife. Ring in the nobler modes of life with sweeter manners, purer laws. Ring out the want, the care, the sin, the faithless coldness of the times. Ring out my mournful rhymes, but ring the fuller minstrel in. Ring out false pride in place and blood, the civic slander and the spite. Ring in the love of truth and right. Ring in the common love of good. Ring out old shapes of foul disease. Ring out the narrowing lust for gold. Ring out the 1,000 wars of old. Ring in the 1,000 years of peace. This is how old I am. When I was in high school, my dad got a personal computer at work for the first time. He's a writer and a now retired college professor, and he came home overflowing with happy reports about what it could do. Not get onto the internet, that wasn't a thing yet, or make calculations in less time than a blink, because his field is English literature and doesn't involve a lot of math. No, what he could not get over was the copy and paste function. Amy, he said, if you decide a paragraph should go later in your piece, you can just lift it out and move it. It is so amazing. I didn't type a dissertation on a Smith Corona like my dad did, but as someone who writes for a living, I deeply appreciate not having to retype 3 pages or scribble in the margins every time I want to move a sentence from there to here. It's good to look back in memory and realize how much the development of this humble function has helped us. But of all the simple, formerly impossible things a computer program can do, the one I'm particularly thankful for is Ctrl-Z, undo. Oops, I didn't mean to delete that. Ctrl-Z, and it's back. An hour's hard work has not gone down the tubes. Uh-oh, what'd I just do? Undo it. Whew. Thank God and computer programmers for Ctrl-Z. Out of the ashes of our mistakes, they perform a miracle. They reverse time. They give us another chance. If only more of life were like that. If only we could push a button. If only, as the bells rang out, the past year passed away, and with it, disease and war and deservedly dying causes. In so many ways, life isn't like that. It just isn't. Our mistakes affect other people, other beings, not just pixels. And so there are things we just can't undo. We can apologize, make amends, but we can't just push a button or 2 buttons at the same time and return us to the pristine state of before time. Between the action and the realization that we would like to withdraw it, feelings are hurt, lives are lost. Species disappear. If only there were an undo button for life, many tragedies and losses would melt away as swiftly as words disappear and reappear on a screen. There isn't, of course. And when we do act as if the harm we sometimes do one another is easily dismissed and forgotten, we really just add to the harm. But I also think we could undo a lot more often. I think we don't exercise that power nearly as much as we might. We treat so many mistakes and past decisions as if they are utterly irreversible. And so we persist in them when we could say, oops, that was a bad idea. I can't undo the harm it has caused, but I sure would like to take a different road from this point. I would like to do things differently now. And we can help each other to do that by the kind of friendship we offer, offering each other gently and with humor and empathy the opportunities to reassess and change when we choose to. You know, we are some of the most powerful people who have ever lived. I don't want to make assumptions about your circumstances. I know some here are struggling for their lives, they're worried about where the next rent check will come from. You're terrified for a family member. Maybe you're terrified of a family member. It's not all roses. However, on the whole, as a community, We have tremendous power, wealth, social status, access to healthcare and education and good jobs. We are the beneficiaries of others' past decisions, which, right or wrong, granted us a great deal of security and influence. And yet, we feel so helpless to affect our world. We look around and see overwhelming problems caused by past mistakes, our own or other people's, that seem impossible to undo. What if we embraced our power to reimagine and remake our communities? What if we started, at least in imagination, with an empty screen and said, we can make our nation, our schools, our workplaces, our towns what we want them to be? Okay, let's start smaller. What is a direction you've been heading that feels a little off to you? A habit you've gotten into, say, that a little niggling feeling tells you you'd really like to change. I'll give you a moment. Could you hit Ctrl-Z on that habit? Is it important enough to you? Remember, if you fall into it, again, the Ctrl-Z buttons are still there. Some of you are probably thinking of one that would be pretty easy, and you're going to change it right away. Some of you are probably thinking you are uncomfortable with something in your life, but undoing it is really daunting for many reasons. I think one of the reasons we sometimes don't change course, even when we don't like the direction we're headed, is something called the sunk cost fallacy. You may know what that is. The sunk cost fallacy reflects the fact that we, as individuals and organizations, are more likely to continue with something, a project, a decision, a course of action, if we have already invested a lot in it, our money, our effort, our time, even when continuing is not to our advantage. The succinct expression for this mistake is throwing good money after bad. So, for example, you bought a ticket for a concert or sporting event or play, but now you have a headache and you really don't feel like going. You can't find anyone to buy the ticket or even accept it as a gift. This is a case of the cost being sunk. And you might as well cut your losses and do what you want to do that evening. Stay home, put your pajamas on, and turn in early. You can't change the past, but you can decide now on how to spend your evening, and it's not rational to spend it miserably instead of happily. In real life, it's complicated by the fact that we don't know in advance what we will wish we had done. Since we can't predict the future, even how we will feel in just an hour or two, it's possible that if you go, you might have a good time after all. Maybe your headache will disappear. On the other hand, we can often just try these unknown futures. Hey, go to the concert, and if 20 minutes in your headache is worse and you wish you were just home in bed, nothing's stopping you from leaving, except your own commitment to costs that are sunk and will never be recouped. It's even more complex with decisions like whether to stay in a struggling relationship, or whether to stay in a job that is steady but soul-numbing, or for that matter, invigorating but not high-paying enough to stay out of debt. Or whether to change careers to something you would prefer, even though you've put years of effort and expense into developing the one you're in. As I said once from this pulpit, I think most of us tend to either stay too long or quit too early, and it's good just to know what our own tendencies are. And of course, there are other people to be considered who may be affected by your decisions. But let's focus for today on the things we really could and should undo. Those in which no one, least of all ourselves, is particularly benefiting from our current course. The most devastating example of the sunk cost fallacy at work might be war. A grim saying goes, no one wants their child to be the last to die for a mistake. There is only one way to ensure that no one is the last to die in a war, and that's to have people keep dying. Another way to put it is that it is better to be the last one to die for a mistake than for another 1,000 to die after you, or even another 100, or even another 1. In a related issue, tangential but related, each time there's a mass shooting, there are some who want to talk about gun violence, and others who say it's not a good moment when feelings are running high, that we're politicizing the grief and shock of that moment. This isn't the time, some say. My friend Brian Sargent wisely turns this around. The time to talk about gun policy isn't after the last mass shooting, it's before the next one. The costs of our past are sunk, and that time, those dollars, those lives, tragically, cannot be retrieved. The rest of history is still before us. How do we want it to go? The essential ingredient to getting out of the sunk cost trap is to recognize when costs are sunk, when what's done is done, and we can only move forward from here. Life isn't always as simple as Ctrl-Z. Usually we leave behind more than the trace of pixels on a screen, but often it really is just our time and effort that we'll lose, and maybe our pride. Do we say, oh geez, I typed that whole word and I hate to undo it? No, we click Ctrl-Z and are glad that modern computer processing makes it so easy to begin afresh. I think another reason we have trouble extending undo to other parts of our lives is that it's hard to remember that the past is the past, and we only have this point forward. Yes, we are shaped by the past, always. But certain attitudes keep us there, stuck there. We are a can-do culture as US Americans, but in some ways, we are so defeatist. We too readily accept what is as what must be. This is why it's good for older folks to spend time with younger ones. Adolescents especially, as they become aware of what is, ask why it is that way. They don't take kindly to the answer, that's just how it is. They ask the questions we all could be asking all the time. Is there a better way? Could we try that? They think big, if we, their elders, don't discourage them. The past is the past. But we can rewrite even the story, not of what happened, that would be madness, but of how we interpret it and how we grow from it. When it comes to politics, national and global issues, we have difficulty doing that. And we have particular difficulty in righting wrongs because we can't or won't admit they are wrongs. What if people had felt that way about the wrongs that have been righted in recent decades, the advances in liberation for people of all races, people of all genders, people of all physical abilities and disabilities? What if, when these changes were being debated, people had said or thought, we can't change this policy because it would show we'd been wrong all this time? Actually, I'm sure they often did. And that's why some really horrible policies held on for so long. Are we doing that now? Being unwilling even to contemplate change? About what? Why, for example, is it so unthinkable to take a lot of what police do out of police departments' hands? We can argue about whether defund the police is a useful slogan, but ask any police officer and they'll tell you things that they don't feel are quite exactly their jobs but have ended up on their plates. Why do we pay police to respond to mental health crises? Or redirect homeless people to services? Or evict tenants who haven't threatened violence but have simply not paid? When police training is not the right training for these tasks. When putting them in the hands of police begs to make them into matters of crime and danger, whereas social workers or public health professionals or mediators are the natural people for the jobs. We can't erase the damage that we have done as we bumbled along trying to figure out this complicated stuff about being human and organizing our society. There's no magic button, no computer program to fix it. But this is certain. If we're to have a better future, the best possible thing we can do right now is to be honest about where we are and what we've done. This is one thing we can give one another, a willingness not to be bound by past errors, but to embrace the vast possibilities of the future, to look forward with hope and move into the future with better intentions, instead of just accepting that the way things are is the way they have to be. We have made a lot of wry jokes about the passing of 2020. The year is dying. Let him die, we've said, happy to see the back of a bad year. Whether 2021 and future years will be different and how much different depends not on the turning of the clock and the calendar, but largely on us. We are the ones we have been waiting for, as June Jordan wrote. We and people just like us created the world we live in. We can create a new one, starting small, thinking big, starting now. So may it be. As a part of the free church tradition, we accept no money from any governmental body, nor do we receive money from any ecclesiastical authority, in order that we shall remain free to govern ourselves. In addition to their annual pledges, each week our members and friends may choose to give an additional contribution or as a public witness that we are and shall remain a free church. With our offering, we also assert that we are part of the interdependent web of existence. 1 week per month, your gift goes to the chosen community organization, and next week, that's what we will do with our offering. The order of service gives a QR code and link, and often information on using text to give via Give Lively. Please give generously. If you're visiting us for the first time, you're our guest. Please just enjoy the music as our gift to you. Thank you. Please join in as Bruce leads us in singing Building a New Way. Ring out the old, ring in the new. Go in peace. stay here in the main room with me to discuss the service. If you have the latest version of Zoom just coming in this weekend, version 547, you should be able to freely move between breakout rooms on your own. The rooms will stay open for about half an hour. Now, please unmute yourself and turn on your video while we say our benediction together. Go out into the world, be of good courage, hold fast what is good, return no one evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help suffering, rejoice in beauty, seek love with word and deed, honor all beings.